Now, if you're doing this job the way I do, using a minimum number of parts, do yourself a favour. Get yourself 4 common M12 nylocks for the U-bolts, a M14 by 1.5 bolt and nylock for the front spring hanger. The original is 110mm long. My local place only had them in 120mm, but that's not a problem. And get yourself a pair of M12 by 1.25 nylocks for the rear spring hanger. Broken spring on the old L200. This is a 2007 model. Wheel off, jack it up, support the axle. And this emphasises the importance of these rubber bump stops. If that hadn't been in place, I probably wouldn't have been able to drive the vehicle home. And one of the first things that we have to deal with is the U-bolt nuts, for which you will need a good deep 19mm socket. There's about 2 inches of thread to cover, and the threads will need cleaning. One handy way of cleaning those threads is to take a 12mm nut with a slot cut out of it and run it up and down the threads. And that really does clean those threads. Well, you could use a dye, of course, but why wear a dye out cleaning rust off? So expect those U-bolt nuts to be tight. 1/2 inch impact wrench with plenty of air didn't even touch them, and I had to resort to the big wrench, the 3/4 wrench, and even that struggled a bit. Well, this job is turning into a real pain. This front spring hanger, 22mm heads on both the nuts and the bolt. The nut is on the inboard side. I managed to get the bolt turning, but actually it's the bush turning in the spring rather than the bolt turning in the bush, so I'm stuck. Now the first trick is I'm going to weld a nut on there and try and pull it out with the slide hammer, but all the angles are wrong here. You can't just quite get a drift on. And then the second trick I think will be to cut the head off and try and drive it through, and if that doesn't work I'll cut the head off and the tail off and try and open the housing up enough with crowbars and what have you and wedges to get the thing to drop out. Well, there we are, that's the nut welded on, so I'm just going to have a cup of tea while that cools down. Well, that didn't work, so I ended up cutting both ends off and prizing it out. Morning's job turning into a day's job. And the rear spring hanger is one of these affairs. So you do have to take both nuts off. I actually cut them off, and I'm going to replace them, of course. Clean the thing up and clean the threads up, and then the whole thing is just a straightforward reversal to reassemble.